welcome. We have Franco and Kathryn today, and we're just going to talk a little bit about the performance side of the romance business. And this is a gathering that we kind of like to call romance on the table. So we're going to put it all on the table today. Not going to ask you to divulge any secrets, but this is really just for people who are romance creators and people who are kind of coming up in the industry, and what can they be thinking about when they're writing scripts or when they're even writing novels. You know, I mean, ultimately, one of the things that we've been asking authors lately is, how would you cast your own novel? Which is a very exciting thing for them to think about. So, you know, maybe during this course, you guys can take the opportunity to pitch yourselves at the author level. So both of you have had the opportunity to work with us at Brainpower Studio, and both of you have been leads for us.
Yes,
but when we started to work together, I think, you know, why don't you, Kathryn, tell me a little bit about the first time you heard about Brainpower Studio and you heard about the movies that we were doing.
My first encounter with Brainpower came through the audition cycle, and I remember doing a self-tape audition for a role, and nothing occurred from that one. And then a few months after, I had an email come through from my agent, and I had a direct offer for something, and I was like, I don't even remember auditioning for that role, kind of thing. I was like, oh, you know, cool. And so I learned that that was a role with Brainpower, and it goes to show you never know who's on the other side watching performance, because it was based off of a self-tape I'd done 2-3 months before, and then I had a direct offer because I got kind of, I guess, tagged a little bit from that audition, and they were like, I'd like to work with her in the future. So when a role came up in Christmas with a Prince, I was cast as the mean princess, and from there it's just been continuing to be given opportunities and building up in terms of the size of the role with each time, until the final one was the lead that Brainpower so kindly.
Christmas on Fifth Avenue.
Yes.
And Franco, for those people who don't know, what is a self-tape?
Well, basically, you're making your home, or wherever you go, your own office. I mean, we're doing the audition in a space that is not in a studio,
right,
or a casting office. Essentially, we'll have a blank wall. Either it could be a color of green, blue, or a drape, and we get a self-tape with a ring light.
Right.
We get our phones in there, and we read the scene with.
And who reads to you? Like, you need to have somebody.
Usually, well, now it's the love of my life who's my reader, you know. So the chemistry is always there. But essentially, it could also be a friend. It could be a fellow actor. There are self-tape studios that have, that are in Toronto and in the city, and you can go and pay to get the self-tape done professionally with some sound. But essentially, you are doing it with someone that you trust, that could, give you a good reading. Because when you're doing a self-tape, it's important that you have a good reader.
From a producer perspective, what's really wild is that it's not in person anymore. But actually, from me personally, I'm super happy that it's not in person anymore. Our job is to cast people who are on camera, and to have that presence and that it factor on camera. And sometimes when we would do auditions in the room, people would come in and you'd fall in love with them. And then afterwards you may look at the tape and just sort of feel like that person that was just marvelous in the room sometimes doesn't transpose. Thank you for explaining that, because not everybody sort of understands where the industry is right now, in that you actually don't have to go and sit beside, in front of a casting agent and a panel of producers and all that. But now you have other things to think about, which is that you have to really make sure the quality of the camera is. I mean, Rebecca LaMarche, who is one of our producers and casts with me, I mean, we always look at things when somebody makes just a little bit of an effort, throws a prop in there. Sometimes it's not the right prop, like they may put some glasses on, take them off, put them on, take them off. They may put a hat on, but ultimately it shows us that they care about the characters. Because that's really, although we are making romance movies and Christmas movies, which you know, a lot of the things that we talk about at Love here is just how a lot of people feel, oh, you know, that's an easy thing to do. Those are light films, so therefore the process is easier, but it's not easy. So from the moment that you're taping and you're putting things, you know, down digitally and sending it in, and then it goes into this sort of big online database, which we have now, you know, the producer has called for those auditions. And I'm just very happy to say that my history with both of you is that we completely fell in love with your first tapes with us, and you got moved into a little bucket that we like to call future leading ladies and men. So we're, you know, Franco, when we started to work with you, were you coming off of Bad Blood or?
No, I actually, Bad Blood was after Christmas Catch.
Ah.
So it's really interesting. I had been working as an actor for a year, and when I started acting, I had long hair.
Right.
And it was pretty long, and I'd always enter these auditions with the man bun, because there was
Right.
no other way I could, you know, style my hair. I got big curly hair like
Oh,
yours,
yeah.
right? So it was just like an
was a
afro. So
volume.
just, you know, I'm going in for these roles, and I've always got the man bun, and I'm not really booking. And my agent was like, you need to cut your hair. I think it's time for you to make that change. And I did that, and I was in acting class, and I got an audition for, you know, Christmas Catch, Brainpower Studios, and I went to my friend who was a fellow actor. I went to his house. We did the tape, and that's how I booked Christmas Catch, which ended up being my first lead. I had done an SOC, which is a silent on camera role for Schitt's Creek, and then I had my first booking that I ever did a year prior to Christmas Catch was Letterkenny, where I played a model who thought he was too
I think you were a
fat.
handsome guy.
Yeah, I was a handsome guy, exactly. So Christmas Catch was my first leading man role, and I took it on full stride. I dug right into there, and it was
You were amazing in that role. And actually that role, we have that movie on the platform, so that if people want to watch Christmas Catch, they can check it out.
Catch you in it.
Well, it's catchy, but it's also too, it's a nice, you know, the movies that are kind of living on the service are really ones that we're asking people if they want to kind of look and see more of what we're talking about in our roundtable discussions. They can go and see it. And well, it's also a lovely little movie.
It's a lovely little movie, and it also, like, it opened my mind to the genre, because I'd watched films in the rom-com genre. Now I get to, you know, act in one of these films. So I remember researching Brainpower. I had watched one of the films Justin directed, you know,
Justin
prior
did,
to
yeah.
working with Justin. I think it was Christmas Wedding Planner.
Right.
Jocelyn and Scott.
Scott.
Right.
Stephen Huzar.
Okay, yes, Stephen Huzar, sorry. Well, maybe it's the wrong title. It was the one with Jocelyn and Scott.
Yeah.
Christmas with a View.
Christmas with a View.
Yes.
Caitlin and
Yes.
Scott.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, we're playing actor
sorry, we're
names.
playing actor names. I'm
It's
so
so
sorry.
good. If my mind goes, we're all screwed. Because I think we have done. I think we're up to 35 Christmas rom-com films that we've done. Really, 2017 was our first Christmas season so far. So it's okay.
It's okay. You know?
we can.
All beautiful
yes,
people.
Christmas with a View, which is on
Fantastic
Netflix
artists, yeah.
if anybody wants to see it. But yes, that was a beautiful film that we did.
It was. And yeah, Christmas Catch was incredible. I'll never forget it. It was a completely memorable experience for me.
And now you have a reminder that you live with a little bit from
Yes,
that
I do.
movie.
So yeah, Christmas Catch introduced me to the love of my life. 3 years after filming, we reconnected, and
That's Emily Alatalo.
Emily Alatalo, who played Detective Mac.
Yes.
And I mean, I remember going into the film, and you don't want to fall into the cliche of, you know, you fall for your co-star, but I remember just meeting her, and it was like, uh-oh, who is this? I don't want to like you because I don't want to fall into this cliche. And she had a boyfriend at the time, but over the course of filming, it was completely professional. We had a great rapport, and 3 years later, I think God brought us together in His own way, and
Nice.
and
you're
reconnected.
together.
So now we got to.
Romantically.
I like to say I met her last year, so the sequel would be COVID Catch.
We're working on it. So in terms of chemistry with leads, is that something, Kathryn, that now you've been doing, more in the romance area? Is that something that makes a difference on screen, do you feel?
Working with Olivier on Christmas on 5th, I put some pressures on myself in the lead up to the film because I wanted to make sure that, it was my first lead role. I was like, I want to knock it out of the ballpark, make sure that, the trust that you're giving me, that I'm pulling all performance out in it. So I had a feeling, it's weird, I had a feeling beforehand when I was reading the script. I was like, I wonder who's going to be cast as Lucas Blade. Like, I wonder who. And I'd worked with Olivier the year before on Wedding Planners. We didn't have a direct scene together,
right?
But we were put in holding together, and I remember talking to him.
Sorry, holding, so everyone's clear.
Oh, yes.
Is that the actors are just put together? They're not actually held captive by any means?
No.
But that is just a term that we call
between
holding.
takes.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Like agree
It's really important.
For the people who don't have set jargon in their head every day.
Got it, yes. Yeah. Yes, so I remember sitting with him and chatting a little bit, and then went upstairs and I got married to Joseph Kanata, like in the episode. Joseph. And so I had a feeling when I was reading the role, I was like, I wonder if it's going to be Olivier. That's just who I had envisioned for it. And then Rebecca LaMarche told me who my co-star was. So I actually reached out to him. I didn't have his phone number, just through social media. I'm like, hey, do you remember me from Wedding Planners? I'm Eva. I'm playing Eva. So we connected through that, and then we started, in the time of COVID, doing Zoom talks with each other. And so the first time, it was about 3 weeks before we went to camera, and we had a Zoom chat, and we just talked for hours. And it was just really nice to connect with a human in that way, as well as you can through a virtual screen. And we didn't even get to working on the script, literally, like we were just talking. So it built an initial trust and a friendship that we had from the get-go. And then we continued doing that for a few weeks, and then I was working on the script away from him, vice versa, and then we'd come together, rehearse scenes, read the script through Zoom to each other. And then when we met in person, we already had that established working relationship. So it made it so much easier, I think, on set to trust in the partner. And there is somewhat of a formula that these kinds of movies do follow, but it's the extra depth and the extra investment that you make in it that sets your one apart, I think.
Absolutely.
The extra flavors,
Absolutely.
the extra ingredients. And I think that the trust that we had, I think showed through, because we were able to push each other a little bit more, or open up and trust each other even more. And there are scenes of vulnerability that these scripts have always as part of the storyline, and it was to be able to like open up in a room that it's filled with crew, and it's very unintimate in any way, because you've got mic packs on, and you're getting like your finals, makeup, hair, everything. But to be able to kind of block that out and just connect fully with the other actor, and to just know that he's there for me, I'm there for him, and we would just give each other as much support and performance when it's his coverage versus my coverage. Like, we were both there for each other. Mm-hmm. So I think that was that was just an extra step that we both made as performers, to make sure that we had that extra deep connection.
It's massive.
And then I hope it reads well.
Kathryn, as you were talking a little bit about the intimacy, like obviously most of the rom-coms that we do and the Christmas films we do are very chaste, but there is kissing. There is close proximity to co-stars. And, how do you feel about the industry now that we're moving towards a place where there's intimacy coordinators, that there's real care being taken place on set? Do you think that that's a good move?
I think so. I had an interesting talk a couple of years ago on a project I was working on, and they brought in an intimacy director, and that was the first time I'd ever heard of it happening. And that was, there was some pushback I could see from certain cast members, but for me, myself, I would feel comfortable. Like Olivier and I, we had that comfort with each other, myself and Joseph, that we could have that conversation, like, are you okay? Like, are you comfortable, kissing? And I think it's a great step moving forward to just make sure that there is safety and that you're not doing something that makes you completely, feel vulnerable or uncomfortable, and that there's an apparatus in place for you to be able to go and, discuss if there's something that is uncomfortable for you, that you have a safety net to go to and discuss it. And I think intimacy directors, even though I have not had a direct interaction with one, I think it would be something that I would certainly feel more comfortable about. Everyone has their own boundaries, so it's about being
and I think
respectful
even
of that.
also for male actors as well. I mean, there's crew, there's behind the scenes. I mean, I'm very happy that we certainly work under a code of conduct on brainpower sets, but I feel too that it's a collaboration with the cast and the crew. I mean, if we don't know things aren't happening, we can't do things to rectify it. So that kind of, if you see it, say something. If you feel it, definitely say something. So I do feel like hopefully sets are getting more open to these dialogues that are happening.
I think it's a must. And I've dealt with an intimacy coordinator, and I think there should be one all the time, just for that safety and that comfortability, for being on a safe set and having a means between your co-star that what is going to happen in this really vulnerable situation that's intimate. So for the most part, I mean, I think it's a given that any actor should discuss with their co-star how this kiss is going to be done in a respectful way, to respect one another.